broadcast out when it goes online.
We're just about up. We actually are up now. This is the everyone gets to hear the opening kind of jitters. It's fun. It's live. It's fun. Everyone wants to hear the real deal. There we go. All right. What is up, everybody? What is up? I am gonna keep talking here for just a little bit before we get started. Let me know in the comments how the sound is, how the quality is set up. If there's anything I need to fix, we're gonna do that now before I just start yammering on and talking about this amazing MMO that is coming out. So let me know in the comments, everyone, how the sound is and how we're sounding. I'm going to be quiet for a second until I hear some people let me know. What's up, Mama Friend? Let's pull this up on the phone as well. Quality's acceptable. Looks cool so far. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. All right, so if that sounds good, we're going to jump right into it, guys. So I think I've said it once. I've said it before. I've said it a million times. We have had basically an amazing year for hardware. Hardware's been just non-stop new headsets. We've had the Quest, the Rift S, the Index, the Cosmos is coming out. Headsets galore, the Reverb. And it's always the chicken and egg debate. What matters more? Does the hardware matter more or does the software matter more? And I'm not getting into the debate. However, I'm happy with where the hardware is, and now it's time for the games. That's what I hope. And you all know it's very hard to keep up with VR news because the outlets for them are just not as accessible or numerous as, say, traditional console gaming. So developers and everyone pushing innovation in games need to be highlighted as much as possible. It's extremely important, and that's exactly what we're doing today. So we're going to be jumping right into this rather than going over a lot of introductions and saying hey in the chat because their time is valuable and they got a lot of information to share. So we want to go over it. But MMOs and VR. If someone doesn't know anything about VR, they know two things. They either know the really bad VR like Cardboard, or they know Ready Player One, because that's what's synonymous with VR, and I think that's the holy grail of VR. Sword Art Online, Ready Player One, and while we may be far away from that, I haven't personally seen any VR MMORPG that is just kind of swept up, grabbed a bunch of people. There are some out there, but I am looking forward to that one that the community adopts. And when you look at users on, that they're at the top of the list of people just wanting to be part of a community and enjoying the game. So I saw a little bit about Zenith on Reddit the first time, and it immediately piqued my interest. Immediately looked like something different, and I had to reach out, and we had to get them on for the first ever developer live stream. So with that being said, as you can see, today we have two amazing guests, Andy and Lauren, who started Ramen VR in 2019 after working together for 2 years on previous projects. They have decades of combined experience at gaming mobile startups as well as companies like Unity and Google. You also may know them if you've played Counter-Strike, which was a finalist for Unity Multiplayer and VR Game of the Year. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to talk with us. They can't see me, by the way, guys, which was a little bit of a snafu. But thank you guys for joining us. I think it's important that everyone knows a little bit about yourselves so they can get more invested in the game. Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Sure. So I'm Andy, and for my entire life, I've kind of dreamed of this moment where we can actually play in a VR MMORPG. So for the past 10 years, I've been working on games, mobile games, social games, all sorts of games, and consumer products. But when the DK2 came out, I decided, this was it. This was when I should just give everything up and go for broke and just try to do VR. So for the past 2 years, I've been working on VR games and just learning how everything works and super passionate about creating this world where we can kind of exist that's as real as what we see in real life. And so that's why we're doing this. That's why I'm doing this. And grew up playing all the JRPGs and all the anime, watching all the animes, Miyazaki, Evangelion, Final Fantasy. So those were huge influences for me growing up. And so when there was a chance to kind of build this kind of world because nobody else was doing it, I thought, there's only one chance that people are going to have to do this. We have to at least try. So that's my life story, and that's why I'm working on Zenith.
Yeah. So I'm Lauren. What can I say? I love games. I've been working on games for a couple years, but I've been playing games for my whole life. I think the first game I ever got really, really lost in was Pokemon Red.
Yes.
So ever since then, I've been really interested in the idea of just getting completely sucked into a game, like the story, the lore, and just being able to live and breathe something. I can think of times throughout my childhood when I would take lessons that I learned in games and take it out into the real world, just like a book or a movie or anything else. So yeah, super excited to be working on VR. Fun fact, I actually suffered from extreme simulator sickness. So one of the things that I really love about working on VR is that we're making it so that people don't get nearly as sick playing the games. So I'm excited to be able to play my own game.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys, by the way, for just joining us, because I know, especially developing a game like this, there's a lot. I'm sure you guys are busy, so thank you for taking the time. And because of that, like I said, we're going to jump right into it. I do want to give everyone who doesn't know about the game just basically a brief overview. Got this straight from the game description. Basically about this is get ready to start your new life as an anime hero alongside countless others in an evolving player-driven world. Zenith is a VR MMORPG inspired by our favorite animes and JRPGs like they talked about, where millions of people can play, socialize, and create their own unique experience together. Fight, craft, explore, and live in the first cross-platform, I think that's important, cross-platform VR MMORPG. Forge alliances and friendships in guilds and parties, participate in epic raids and world events, or go solo, become a powerful beater whose deeds will be forever immortalized in a world that will be important as the real one. So I want to get into some of just kind of the broader questions that some people reached out to me, and some of them are also my personal questions. And then we'll get into the user questions, and if there's any time, we'll keep going through the comment section as well. I know a lot of people have very similar questions, but something that I think I want to know, and I think a lot of people, I know you went into a little bit, but I'm curious about your thoughts on this. Why an MMO in the sense of, it's a large task, is there a specific passion that drove you to this? Because we got to admit, an MMO is a huge undertaking, and I'm sure there's got to be something driving you to really want to go for that.
Well, first of all, we're gluttons for punishment, so we just working nonstop all day. That's the greatest thing, we feel like we're out here doing God's work, So, in all seriousness, Lauren and I, we left some pretty lucrative jobs and some pretty successful careers to do this, and so, we didn't want to just be a little bit successful. We didn't want to just create a successful game that made us some money. We wanted to kind of change the way people interact in virtual reality. And so for us, we're really building the game that we want to play, it's really as simple as that. That's kind of what it comes down to. And we want to play this game. We want to see it exist. We want to see all of you guys in there. And we're driven by, I think, this desire to create something that's at one side never been done before, but on the other side is something that everybody's kind of familiar with, right? It's this is the dream of what people want when they buy a VR headset, right?
Absolutely.
I'm sure they buy it, they want to play Beat Saber and stuff, and that's the thing that they end up playing, but secretly I think everybody in the back of their head wishes that there was an experience that was kind of like SAO or Ready Player One, where they could go in, become the best versions of themselves, and meet completely new people that they never would have otherwise.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of why we're doing it.
I think you nailed it on the head. I think VR and just the kind of tech it is, it's synonymous with other worlds. It's synonymous really with an MMORPG, because that's what everyone's grown up with the movies. That's what VR focuses on, is going to another world and living there. And I can't, guys, if you can hear from my voice, I talk about it as well. Everyone knows on my channel I'm kind of a weeb, and I love anything isekai, which is basically your anime version. Yeah, so I'm all for this. But one of the things with any MMORPG that I think about is like looking at them on computers, World of Warcraft, all these ones. There's a lot of clicking, a lot of multitasking that you can do stuff in real life. Like I could kind of watch TV or do stuff while I'm grinding out levels or crafting, harvesting materials. What are the challenges with an MMORPG in VR, like those repetitive tasks? How do you make it enjoyable, or how do you make it rewarding?
Yeah. So one thing that's definitely challenging is that there are a lot of things you can do in VR that are interesting. They're not repetitive, but the problem is that those things are generally really tiring too. And we want this to be a game that you can sit down and play for a long period of time and not just be like completely wiped out afterwards. So that's something that we're refining. Like we're trying to make sure that the mechanics are both interesting and also not completely exhausting. But something else that we're really excited about is that we have a system that we're calling AI avatars for now, which is basically like once you log out, your player continues to quest and do stuff. So a lot of that grinding can be offloaded to times when when your character is not online, and you can just kind of play more of the fun stuff when you log in.
Oh, okay. That's huge. I think I don't want to underplay that. If anyone missed that, that's a huge point where that is a big concern. A lot of people with any RPGs or MMOs in VR is the time investment, because ultimately the physical acts, everything, the time invested in VR does not. I think time in VR is more costly than the time playing it on a console. And hearing that, where when you're offline, there's a semi-autoplay function to encourage you to keep coming back and not get overwhelmed. Let's not gloss over that. That's huge. Makes me immensely interested even more hearing that. And that kind of goes into the next one, but just as the last kind of final question from me before we get into the user questions, because I know everyone's much more interested in those. And I'm sure you haven't even figured this out fully, but if you can kind of speculate, what's your overall vision right now, the big picture? What is success to you with this game? Because everyone defines it differently. What is the success for this?
Yeah, I think for me and Lauren, we're trying to build the gaming metaverse essentially, right? Like, so if we're looking at what we're trying to do in the next year, it's to build an incredibly fun game that makes you feel like you're inside of an anime, or you're living this world, you're in this completely different world. But long term, the way that we see it is we kind of want to create this alternate reality that feels as visceral and as important to people as the lives that they lead in their daily lives. So we want it to feel like when you're hopping into Zenith that you're going into a different world, and that world is just as important as your real life one. And so if people feel that way, then I think we will have succeeded.
Yeah, that would be success. I feel like, I think there are some games and non-MMORPGs, but there's just VR games where they're very fun, but sometimes I just switch up games and I don't come back to it because I'm not attached to it. And I think a lot of people want actually to be attached to a game. They want a game they can go to anytime they're feeling down, or they just want to play a game, be relaxed, and enjoy something. People want a game they can call home. And some people found it, and great for them. But I think a lot of people in VR have not found that game yet, including myself. So I'm very looking forward to this game, for possibly that. But going into some of the user-submitted questions, and I think this is, and by the way, I don't know if you guys can see the chat, but Metaverse Adventures said, "Wow, you two get it." I think you guys sound like MMO fans just as much as everyone else.
I can't see the chat, but thank you for the words of encouragement, Metaverse Adventure. Yeah, that means that's great. I'll give you $20 later.
They're all saying the vision statement you have has got their attention because you're a fan.
For the stream are really helping out right now.
So straight up easy question to start with: what systems do you plan to have this on, and will they all release at the same time? And what about crossplay?
Either of us could answer, but I guess I can go. We want to be cross-platform on everything, and as much as we can. So what that means is we want to be on Steam VR and all the headsets that run on Steam VR. We want to be on Oculus. We want to run on the Quest. We want to be on PSVR, and we even want to be like on desktop. Although that by cross-platform, truly cross-platform. Although the experience on desktop would be a different kind of asymmetric type of experience. It wouldn't just be like a crappy port of the VR version. So I hope that answers your question on how many platforms you want to be on. Pretty much any 6DoF platform. The cross-buy question is interesting. For Rift and Quest, I could definitely see the cross-buy working, and then on Steam also. But the question is whether Steam and Rift will be cross-buy, and that really depends on whether they'll let us like set up our own account system essentially, and let you buy the game and sign up for an account on Zenith servers versus signing up via like Steam or Oculus authentication. But as much as we would like to kind of have your own unique Zenith identity versus having it be tied to Steam or Oculus.
Perfect. Yeah, and I know some people in the comment section want me to ask like the technical questions, how you're gonna make that happen. But we're not going that far into this one because this is early. There's a lot to do that's more important. I want to get kind of the big ideas. But one thing I like is hearing that you have some intentions of putting it on PC as well, because a lot of people have that fear with VR of player base and large player base. Now, hopefully the game doesn't have it. Even if it didn't have PC, the player base is ready for a VR MMORPG. But it's good to hear you have PC in mind too, because that extra player base really does help bring life to a game for based on the longevity of it. And speaking kind of life on it and just how it's going to be structured, what kind, can you describe the kind of world? I know some people want to know the kind of world it is, how large it is it fully open world or segmented, and are there player limits per areas, things like that?
Yeah, so the world is anime inspired, as we said before. So it's basically a futuristic world where the cities are very futuristic, they're very shiny and new and everything like that. Everything's hovering and neon. But then outside of the cities, there was like a devastating event that happened. So everyone outside of the cities is basically gone for the most part. So when you walk through like suburban areas and stuff, you're going to see just abandoned houses, abandoned neighborhoods, just completely empty for the most part. But nature has sort of come back and taken over that area. So it's going to be very beautiful, though. It's going to be basically just houses that are covered in ivy and plants and just everything like that. The world is going to be pretty big. It's going to be about 7 square kilometers. So if you think of like Central Park, it's going to be about on that scale. It's going to be completely open as much as we can. And right now, we don't plan on segmenting it into like separate servers or separate worlds. We might have to, depending on the player base, depending on what happens going forward. But the plan is to have everyone together.
Yeah, and I think, either way you win in that situation, because if you don't, if you keep everyone together, that builds a sense of community because there's a lot of activity going on, a lot of life, so you get that. And if you do have to build separate ones, well, you obviously have a big enough player base where you need to, which is another good sign. So it sounds like a win-win either way. All right, so we'll finally, this kind of goes in with it a little bit, but is there a focus or anything special in place to basically, other than just a player base, what's going to make the world feel alive and like a community? Because I got asked this a lot, and I've played other games in VR that were community based, or that's the point of it. However, sometimes it can just feel like you're very alone, and nothing like knowing when you jump into the game, there's people and you feel welcome and there's a community. You want to go back to that. What's your strategy for that or goals?
Yeah. Okay. I can answer.
Go for it.
Okay. I think we both have good answers.
Like,
yeah.
Okay,
yeah. The thing is, like obviously we're gonna have all of the stuff that you've come to know and expect from MMO, like guilds, parties, raids, and these kind of cornerstone features that make people feel like they're part of a greater group of players. More specifically around there's 2 things I think. One thing is like avatar customization. So we don't want Zenith to just feel like you jump in and it's something that you're just playing a game. We want the character that you inhabit within Zenith to feel like a real character, for it to feel like a real world. So very fine-grained avatar customization. You want to have like voice modulation so you can sound unique. You can be whoever you want to be in this world. And in terms of the gameplay, I think we want to have both simple like gameplay for casual players, but also very difficult like end game raid content, like really hard stuff that you really need to coordinate with. The equivalent of like a WoW Savage raid, or Final Fantasy like 14, where you have like the end game raids that take weeks to crack, right? Or we think that those are really important reasons for people to stay in the game, is because of that communication and collaboration that they build up as a part of conquering these really, really hard events. So that's my side of it.
Yeah. What I was going to add is also that AI avatars are interactable. Like you can interact with them in other ways as well. So, obviously an AI avatar isn't like a perfect replacement for your best friend, but at the same time, you're never going to log on and be like, oh, I wish I could do this multiplayer thing, but I can't. Like you'll always be able to at least try experiences, even if someone isn't there at the moment. So it's never going to be like empty or like stuff doesn't work because someone isn't there.
Yeah. And the other thing I'll add to that is we're using Spatial OS as a backend, which is like this super powerful dynamic MMO building platform that allows the world to basically change permanently based off of what the players are doing inside the world. So things that I could imagine that would be more community oriented, for example, is like, what if you had like a community kind of garden that you had to like, water the plants, and then you have herbs that come out of the ground, and then you harvest those and use those to cook and do things. So I could imagine Spatial build with it, really making this world come alive and feel like Zenith is something that everybody kind of has to contribute to get something out of it, because it's a community where, like, using again that garden as an analogy, everybody has to work together to foster and create something and create a really gorgeous world that everybody else lives in. So
I'll tell you what, guys, you're killing it in the comments right now, because I think everyone, there's no exact expectations because not a lot of information was out there. But I think if I took a guess and people had hopes of what information they get, you guys are just throwing them bombs of goodness every time I'm just telling you, because I can see, because some people like single player games and some people don't like multiplayer games, and some of them just don't like each other on that. And yeah, an MMORPG is going to have more of a social aspect always, because that's what it's based off. But it's nice to hear that you have plans where if you just want to go alone, there's ways to attempt to still experience everything, even if you're a little nervous to branch out there in the social. And then if you just want to go full hog in social, that's available. So it just sounds like there's a lot of options, and that's ultimately what makes a game fun, is feeling like you have that freedom. And I'm just going to jump right into the big question I think is on most players' minds. And by the way, everyone, I am seeing your comments. I'm keeping tabs on some of these questions at the end. Let's talk about combat, leveling systems. Basically, can you describe and elaborate on basically how combat's going to work, leveling, and your vision of making combat fun? Because like we talked about earlier, with any MMORPG, it's a lot of clicking, and combat isn't tiresome, but with VR, you're going to be doing a lot more activity. That's just without question. So what is the strategy for combat? How does it work? And what makes it doable for a long times and just fun?
You want to take that?
Sure. So the combat right now, right now we have melee and we have spellcasting. Ideally, that won't be the only two things. We're going to keep adding things as time goes on. But what we're working with right now are those two. And first of all, one thing we're going to do is basically have your class and your playstyle decouple. So what that means is that if you want to play something that's very aggressive, tanky sort of character, you can customize your spells or your abilities to match that. So I think that's one thing that's going to prevent people from getting at least bored, is that they can try new playstyles if they decide to. In terms of the actual mechanics, we're going to have a lot of physical, how can I describe it? I guess, in other words, we don't want it to be like you press a button and like a fireball appears. Like we want it to be, you're actually physically doing things so that you get that like reward of like that visceral, like I actually hit this thing with a sword. The final thing is that we want it to be skill based and have a little bit of a timing component. A lot of games have basically like noodle sword fighting where you just do this and like the more times you hit it, like the better you do. And we want to stay away from that and have it be more like there's some element of skill, like you have to be accurate, you have to have your timing right. Like it's not just slapping it with a sword. It has to be a little more realistic.
Yeah, and just to add to that, what we mean by decoupling classes and roles is like in a traditional MMO, you think of the holy trinity of like tank, DPS, and healer, right? But usually the healer is a caster, or the DPS is a caster. The tank is usually a melee class. In this case, we basically want to say, hey, if you want to play a mage but you want to be a tank, you can do that. And hey, if you want to like use your melee class to also do damage or heal, or like basically play a paladin, you can do that. So basically you can play your role exactly how you want it. And the way we're envisioning that is with kind of a loadout system. So a tank would have, or a melee class would have tanking, DPS, and healing abilities. But before you went into combat, you would kind of select the different abilities that you want to use, and then you'd be called, you would basically be either a DPS, a healer, or a tank, based on the abilities that you suggested. One other thing is like we want our combat to feel a lot more physical than traditional MMOs. So I would say it's gonna feel much more like, like a Destiny or a Borderlands, in terms of combat than like a Final Fantasy 14, because it's in VR. You're gonna be throwing fireballs, you're gonna be slashing your sword, and your enemy isn't gonna just be running at you like stupidly, like whacking you with attacks. It's also going to respond much more like a realistic, believable human. And we're going to be employing the same technology we use to do the autoplay on the AI avatars to also drive the realistic human-like behavior of the critters and the monsters and the bosses that you encounter.
Again, guys, I mean, I wish you could see his comments because you're blowing them up. Because that's a big thing with MMOs, because it's repetitive because, and it's not a bad thing that's repetitive, but MMOs traditionally, you see an enemy, they see you, they aggro you now usually, they're going to come right at you, and you're just hitting your skill selection in the order of which is most efficient. Which is nothing wrong with that, but I don't know if that's going to translate to VR sometimes for longevity, but hearing how there's going to be variance to the characters, they're going to react, it's skill-based, you're taking all the elements of an MMO, but really seems like you're adopting them to VR, which is going to be a much more personal experience, and that matters. And a real quickie question that's kind of intertwines a little bit all this. I see some people in the comments asking, what kind of locomotion will be used for all this? Like teleporting, free range motion, what's your plan?
I can take that one. So we will have smooth locomotion so that people can themselves, kind of the standard system. But we also have what we're calling out-of-body locomotion, which is basically when you move, you, the player, stay in one place, but you see your avatar move around in the world in front of you. And then when you let go, you will snap into where your body is.
Okay.
So you don't lose the sense of space. Like a teleport is like I point there and I just am there. But then you lose the sense of space because you're just jumping around. Like it's not really realistic. So this is like you're running, as if you're in third person, basically, and then you jump to wherever you decided to stop running. Personally, I really like that because, like I said, I get really sick, and this is the first time I've honestly been able to play VR games for hours. Like I've never once gotten sick using that, but I also don't feel like I'm missing out on anything.
Yeah.
We'll have
Yeah.
I definitely feel you on the teleport, because I'm not a fan of teleporting, but in the sense of the traditional teleport, because you're almost missing all the work that went into the game. If I teleport 30 feet, I just missed all that detail and effort that was put into that 30 feet, and maybe there would have been a cool experience or something cool I could have seen. And to hear that you thought about that, where it's not just teleporting, I'm still getting all that effort put in during the teleport. I've never heard of that. I never even thought that was possible. So that's really cool. Are there, since we just talked about combat going the other way, there are of course some people in MMORPGs that aren't just pure combat. That's not their main goal. I personally am. I like killing things in VR, and I'm always going to be a tank or DPS. But a lot of people like crafting economies, or the economy of the game. Is there going to be crafting or job systems for players who are more interested in the economy of an MMORPG?
Yeah, there definitely will. there's going to be a fully fledged crafting system. It's still really early stages, so I don't really want to like tell you guys too much that would then be inaccurate later on. But to us, crafting and all that stuff is integral to the MMORPG experience. You know, some people like grinding by killing a ton of monsters, and some people like grinding for materials and you know, the Colonel's 11 herbs and spices or whatever. But like, it's equally important to get both of these things in the game. And as an example, you know, and I'm not saying we're going to do this, but we're big fans of, you know, how a Township Tale has done their crafting system,
Yep.
where you can have like, you have a smithing bench and you have to hit the sword into like just the right place to like craft it. And you know, obviously Orbis has a really robust kind of gathering system with the herbs and things like that as well. And so we think that crafting is really important, and there will definitely be a crafting and job system where you can both craft things that are like glamour based, you know, equipment and outfits, as well as really high level powerful gear that you can only get through the crafting system.
Perfect. I mean, that's, yeah, I know I've never been a big crafter, but when I started crafting in, I think World of Warcraft was the first time I actually got into crafting because you kind of needed to. I found the value of it, and it actually is enjoyable. And I definitely think that just going out with the single mindset of this is a straight up, you know, party system of you're gonna have to kill mobs, level up, get to end game, having that extra system, it creates invaluable amount of stuff that you can do in a game, and I'm excited for that. I do have a couple people asking about two things that are pretty staples of MMOs, PvP systems and the party system and how those will work.
So we definitely want to have PvP. We definitely want to make it opt-in. So it's not going to be something where you can just walk up to anybody like RuneScape was or Ultima and just like kill them. I don't really see ourselves separating PvP servers from PvE and opt-in PvP. I think it's probably all going to be like one holistic world. That being said, PvP is going to be something. When we launch it is dependent on essentially how much we can raise during our Kickstarter project and you know, how much money we can raise from our investors. It's definitely super important, but PvE is going to be for sure there at launch, whereas PvP, you know, might come a couple months later. But we definitely want to put that in there. Whether that's, you know, you're just dueling 1 versus 1, or we have like large battlegrounds like you have in WoW and Final Fantasy 14, where they're almost like separate mini games. We definitely want to see that in there. And then the party system, I don't have much to say about that, but I don't imagine it being too different from like the party systems you'll find in more traditional like MMOs. I think those systems work well, and I don't think we need to really spend time on iterating on those things. So, you know, I could definitely see like friend-based party invites as well as party finders and duty finders and things like that.
Well, I'll make sure. I know you guys have a fairly small team, so I'll make sure whenever you guys go on the Kickstarter stuff like that, we will be sending that out for you everywhere.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome.
What as far as content-wise, I know it's super early, so if we don't even know this, you can straight up call us out on this. How long between, you know, someone who's just a casual player, they're not rushing through it, between, you know, starting levels and end game, how long do you think roughly that's going to take for some people? Because I think it's not important that it's quick. I just know some people have been asking me constantly on that. That's probably one of the most largest questions, because people right now, they have a lot of VR games that unfortunately are awesome and amazing, but they can finish through them way too quick. MMORPGs don't typically have that problem, but it's a big question a lot of people's mind is what they can expect just from the main kind of arc. Obviously, with an MMORPG, there's way more you're going to be doing, but curious about that.
I think it'll probably be around 30 to 40 hours of like main story arc content to get to the end game. But then once you get to the end game, I would say of hours. Just because, you know, the way we kind of see it is kind of the same. Like I said, like we have a lot of things that are similar to games like WoW and Final Fantasy, but also similar to things like Destiny. So like Destiny 2, Forsaken King. A lot of these games had like shorter main campaigns, but then like the challenge comes when you need to, get to the end game and like do the super like coordination heavy, guild heavy, firing squad heavy raids. And we want people to feel like they're constantly progressing while they're going through that 30 to 40 hour arc. And we're a small team, so it's not like if we had made it like 100 hours, I feel like it would be like artificially inflating. Like instead of killing like 10 bunny rabbits, you have to kill like 100 mice or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we want those 30 hours to pass by really quickly. Like they feel like 5 minutes basically. And then you get to the end and you have more item-based progression that takes a lot longer, because then you're like basically sitting there and like wiping and figuring out what you did wrong and doing it over and over again, and really getting that sense of like, I'm getting better at this game.
Absolutely. So basically the new MMORPG user, or the casual one, has the ability to really enjoy the full game, and the ones who are even more hardcore, they have their own, a lot of end game content now, is really progression. So that's good to hear. My final question before we kind of go maybe to a few comments for maybe 5-10 minutes max, I know we want to keep this video reasonable for anyone watching this tomorrow or future days, is obviously the final question is, how much do you think roughly it's going to be going for, and an idea of when either alpha, betas, or its releasing date?
So we're going to sell it at $30,000 a copy. I hope you guys were part of the pre-order, because otherwise that's how much it costs.
I'm glad I got in.
It's gonna be. We think it's probably gonna be somewhere around the $40 range. I mean, I don't want, there's that, I can't like confirm that, but I would say that that's probably how much we're gonna charge for it. And I can't tell you exactly when we're gonna release, but I would say sometime in 2020, probably late 2020, is when we would be looking to launch the game. For people that buy the game or back the Kickstarter or pre-order it, they will never have to pay a subscription fee, although they might have to buy the expansion. We'll grandfather them into any kind of paid subscription plan we have going forward. Obviously, this game will never be pay to win. We may sell things like the same way that Overwatch sells skins and Fortnite and stuff like that, right? But it's never going to be something where if you pay and buy 500 gems, then you'll have a leg up over the people that didn't.
Sure. And I'm going to say a couple things. If you guys have any comments or questions that you'd like answered, please let me know as I go through this. But I think I can speak for myself here. I'm not going to speak for anyone else. But as far as I know, a lot of people have been asking for what day is going to come out. I think it's pretty unanimous. Take your time. A lot of people would agree with that, because we get a lot of games that I think come out sometimes a little too early. I think the VR community is 100% ready to wait for the right game, so I appreciate you guys just even giving us a rough date, but I say, I can speak for myself, take as much time as you guys need for this, because a lot of people are excited. I can tell in the comments. I'm excited to give it a try. A few questions in the comment section. I'm not sure, is this Neuralink compatible? Someone's reading the Elon Musk article today.
It's not going to be Neuralink compatible, but we are working with a shadowy corporation that's they're calling it the Nerve Gear or something like that. Some full dive thing. We don't know when that's going to be done, but hopefully, when that happens, we can get about 10,000 of you guys into our world and see what happens from there.
TNT99 wanted to know if you could give a little more info about how the AI bots or NPCs will work, or how the auto farming, if there's any more details on that.
I can, it's still very early stages on that. You guys mentioned concurrency being being an issue in VR, and that's part of the reason why we're doing that, is both having desktop players and having these AI avatars will mean that you'll never be looking for somebody to play with. However, we also don't want to just make it so that, you can just leave it there. Like a lot of these mobile MMOs where you can just basically leave the game there the whole day running and come back and have pretty epic stuff. So there's going to be a limit to the grind when it's AI driven. Mm-hmm. The truly epic gear, and for to reach certain progression tiers, you're gonna need to play the game for sure. The grinding part is mainly to get like the boring stuff out of the way, and you're definitely not going to be able to get the same items. You're definitely not going to be able to get the same achievements. So there's still going to be like a big reason for you to come back into the game.
I think you made TNT very happy with that answer, because I think, and I kind of was with them, and I was a little worried on how much you could do while offline, because I can see your dilemma of you need to give enough for an auto farm that incentivizes, hey, it's not going to be just a daily grind of killing, like you said, 100 rabbits. There's enough here that makes it easier to come back, but at the same time, you don't want to hand feed anybody, because that just devalues all the effort you're putting into your game, and you want them to enjoy it. But it sounds like that's something you've thought very well ahead. You've done a great job on that, so I think you've made a lot of people happy with that. Other than that, let's go with one more question in the chat, because I do want to wrap it up here. But again, while we're waiting on the final question, because I want to wait for one that we haven't really talked about, I do want to thank you guys for coming. And anyone, if you want to check into the pinned comments or description, the link for their website, that way you can sign up for the newsletter or any news that will be coming out. Also check out their Discord. I've been in it, or I am in it. That thing is popping. There's a lot of people in there, and everyone in there seems very excited. And I'll be honest, actually, I looked at the off-topic category today. You have some very nice people debating in there, because some of those topics that come up would go downhill in any other area, but they were very polite, and I actually learned something today.
Well, we have some amazing moderators, so that's
yes,
really,
that is absolutely needed. One final question here, guys, is as far as the customization, because I think I get what TNT's asking here, is as far as, some VR games, when you look down, you kind of only see your hands. You don't get the full view. And I think that goes along with customization. People, if I'm decking myself out with some awesome armor, or maybe a skin for a blade or anything that's unique, I want to see it maybe if I look around, because that's my identity. Is that going to be possible?
For sure. Yeah, we definitely want to have full IK. So you look down, you see your whole body, you see your outfit, you see everything. Because yeah, you're right. I mean, if you spend all this time working to craft cool stuff, or to sell things or buy things or whatever, and then you don't see it, it's like, what's the point? So yeah, we definitely want to be able to let people see what they worked so hard on, for sure.
Well, I got to say, I know it is super early, everyone. Oh, by the way, real quick, everyone, if you've been watching the video kind of B-roll with everything they provided in the background, the lightsabers, I do want to make clear, because I saw a couple comments on Reddit, that was used for the demonstration. That's not what it's going to be in game. I should have made that clear a long time ago, but I do want you guys to know that. But overall, guys, it's super early in this, but I will say I think this was a great success doing this stream, because a lot of comments that I saw about, you guys actually did terrific on Reddit. You got a lot of upvotes on those and a lot of questions. And I think a lot of the questions were people were not pessimistic, but cautious, because VR is early and we've seen some things that are promised. You knocked it out of the park, I feel like, for just answering these questions that people really want. And I think, it's early. I know that. Take your time on this game, but it sounds amazing. It's something I'm very excited to keep hearing how it's developing. I can't wait to get my hands to try it, because I'm looking for that game that I can just sink an exorbitant amount of time on. My wife will hate it, but I plan to do it. And I'm excited. But with that being said, everybody in the chat, please thank Andy and Lauren for coming. They are the first ever developers we've had on the channel to do a live stream. I hope to do more of these in the future. And if you ever have questions...
Thanks for having us.
Oh, absolutely, guys. Thank you very much. And
it's fun. Yeah.
Thanks.
Remember, guys, you can check the the pinned comment for their Discord, as well as their website. Join my Discord as well. It's a fun group as well. We might be a little less educated on some of the topics that go on in there. But with that being said, please leave a like, subscribe, so you don't miss any future videos. I'm Eric for Present. I'll see you later, VR Space Cowboys.
Bye.